Okay, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again for this session of, to talk about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is under the title of Powering Ethiopia is Indeed Empowering Africa. And on that also, with the theme of having a Pan-African voices for mutual collaboration, meaning Pan-African voices. We have our guests here from Djibouti, Burundi, Uganda, Kenya, South Sudan. The views that they will share with us might not be necessarily a view of their government, but of course they will give, as a citizen, what it means from their own perspective country. So welcome, my brothers. Unfortunately, I am the only sister here. Welcome.
Thank you, Mahlet. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I think you all hear me,
Thank
right?
you, Mahlet. Thank you for welcoming us.
Thank you. So what we do here at Connect Africa is usually, it's a Pan-African platform. Definitely, it's not a platform that is there to create a balance or something, but we do lack that Pan-African voices. So it's to bring African topics, African issues on this platform, and to discuss from the Pan-African point of view. And the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is indeed, a week ago, it has been inaugurated because it started to produce electricity of 375 megawatt, if I'm not mistaken. This dam, as I always say, it is a Pan-African project. It's a Pan-African dam. It's whatever it brings is not only for Ethiopia. I mean, the 60 million people of Ethiopia that will get the light are also part of this region or part of the continent. It has been an intergenerational project for Ethiopia from the time it has been conceived, from Emperor Menelik time up until now. We were not able to realize it, but now 11 years, in 2011 to be exact, it has been launched. And after 11 years or 12 years maybe, after 11 years, it has started to give its first electricity, or to produce electricity. Also, the project stands at, it is 83 or almost 84%. So yeah, it is an African project from various angles, from the motto, from the principles that Ethiopia stands, and also it's in line with the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. Without going more further or in detail, which my brothers will share, let me introduce our speakers here. We see here 4 people, but actually we have 5 speakers, so 2 of them maybe as we start they might join us. We have Abdurrahman Ahmed from Djibouti. We have brother Alex Maharaja from Burundi. We have brother John Magok from South Sudan. We have brother Lambert Ibitu from Uganda, and we have brother Pigby Odmiwengu from Kenya. So brother Abdurrahman is the first speaker, but since I think he has some technical problem to log in, I will go to brother Alex. So brother Alex is from Burundi. He's a Pan-Africanist. He has been active advocate of the No More movement. He's also a founder of Africa Acts Now. Brother Alex, welcome again. We can't hear you. Alex, we can't hear you for some reason. Yeah, maybe
okay, now you can hear me.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
As I say, my name is Alex Maharaja, the founder of African Act Now, a Pan-Africanist and normal movement member. This organization is about bringing youth and African together in order to move it as one African and as one continent, in short.
Yeah, Alex. Yeah, over to you. It's you can continue.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was saying. I was saying that this organization is helping different people. As you can see here, there are so many people who are with us, like in normal movement. So we are here to be together and fight for our rights as Africans, to fight the imperialism, and in order to conquer the imperialism, come together in the unity. We should trust each other and help one another as brothers and sisters. So according to this project about the dam, this project that has been completed but not yet, this dam is going to help so many people. It's not going to help on the Ethiopian people. It's going to help the African people, because more countries are very interested in this project. Even recently, the Kenya government has signed a memo of understanding how they're going to purchase the electricity from Ethiopia. So this project is for everybody, and all African countries are going to benefit from it. So the fact that there has been a lot of problem about the dam, about this big project, like they have issue with Egypt and Sudan. So the Ethiopian government has promised them that the water is going to flow as it used to be like before. So this issue is supposed to be sorted in a diplomatical way, not in the way of cursing each other by words or threatening each other using war or other things. So this is Africa. Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia should come together, like brothers and sisters, find their own solutions rather than getting a solution from outside forces. They can sort their own problem. That is not what I can say.
Thank you, brother Alex. For sharing your view on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and to touch upon some of the issues that that Ethiopia has been facing. I see that our brother from Djibouti, Abdurrahman Ahmed, has joined us again. Can you hear us, Abdurrahman?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good. Yeah, we do hear you. So you were the first speaker, and so since you were asked, brother Alex, to share his view with us. So as I said, let me introduce brother Abdurrahman briefly, and he will. Okay, I'm trying to unmute. Except brother Abdurrahman. Yeah. Please mute. If you are not the speaker, please mute yourself. Yeah, I think it's better. Yeah. So brother Abdurrahman, although he was born and studied in Djibouti, but he has traveled and lived in various parts of the world. Actually, he is a graduate in international management and development, and he's an expert in environmental governor who has also an experience in developing and implementing managing projects in resource mobilization, in analytical and communication skills. He served in various international organizations. Brother Alex, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, like the Canadian International Development Agency in Horn of Africa Regional Environmental Center and Network. Currently, he is also working in the organization that he launched in Djibouti, which is the first social and environmental green entrepreneurship business. So, Brother Abdrahman, can you share with us your view, on the following the recent milestones that Ethiopia has achieved, in producing, inaugurating the first electricity production by the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, in which its negotiation has taken more than a decade, although there's no, there's nothing to be, for me, it's like a talk. I don't think one has to negotiate on a project that it is building in its own territory, financed by its own people, and also as long as it has this transboundary water and it's not significantly, as it is said, harming the other Nile Riparian states. So please share us over to you, Brother Abdrahman. Yeah, share us your view about this, or your reflection following this inauguration, and maybe, some views from the perspective of your own country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Waziro Mahlet. And first of all, let me congratulate you for this very, very important channel, Connect Africa. We need to have more of this kind of communication to connect between our brothers and sisters in Africa. And secondly, I would like to say hi to all my comrades and brothers and sisters who are on the show. And thirdly, before I start my small presentation about the Nile, I would like to send a congratulation to the people of Ethiopia, who again show a great strength and pride of completing the Grand Renaissance Dam, and actually for the inauguration of this dam that I believe strongly will make a lot of positive change, not only for Ethiopia, but also for the neighboring country of Ethiopia. I believe that actually I concur with what my brother Alex said, and I think for the sake of the people who are listening to us, to give the context of the Nile rivers, as well as how this dam came out. So you gave me 10 minutes. So in that 10 minutes, I would like to present just briefly the history or the context of the Nile rivers and then the dam itself. I believe that some of my colleagues, as you said, if they can mute their microphone, it will be better actually for the listener to have a good listening. So let's say that the whole issue, the Nile rivers, for the sake of the people who are listening to us, it originates in deep in Africa, and it actually it crossed 11 countries. You have the White Nile that originate in Uganda, then actually pass through different countries, Burundi, Tanzania, Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, and then when the White Nile arrived in Ethiopia, it joined with the Blue Nile, and then together they become what's known today the longest river in the world, the Nile River. And then the upstream country, when you are in Ethiopia, it's Eritrea, South Sudan, Sudan and Egypt. So total 11 countries. And then you have historically, if we're speaking at the beginning of the last century or the end of the last century, 1880s, 1889, British came to colonize different parts of the African country. And the first country they occupied was actually Egypt. And they were the one who started 1889, 1891, and 1902, the first agreement between the British and the Italian. Then, actually, during the British occupation of Egypt in 1929, that's when actually they created the first agreement, if we can say, giving to Egypt the lion's share of the Nile River flows or water, as well as they included in the agreement couple of elements actually that is totally crazy today when we look back. No work, for example, if I can write it, no work could be undertaken on the Nile and its tributary without Egypt acceptance. And keep in mind, at that moment, Egypt was not the actual today Egypt. It was British occupied Egypt. So then, after the colonizer were defeated after the first independence, Egypt and Sudan in 1959 together they came, and then they renegotiated the 1929 agreement, especially Aswan, the High Dam of Aswan. So what we are talking today, it's in line with the 1959 agreement. If we look at that agreement that was negotiated between Sudan and Egypt, Egypt took actually 66% of the flow of the water of the Nile River, while Sudan took 22. At the same time, giving themselves a veto power, saying that actually all the other downstream countries, we're talking about 9 countries, if ever they try to build anything on the Nile, they have to get the permission, if I can say, of Egypt and veto. So let's say that actually that was not a sustainable solution. So there was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of effort that was done. And also I would like to mention that when we're talking about the Blue Nile, which is actually the river that actually produces the majority of the water of the Nile River, it originated in Egypt. I'm saying that river is originated in Ethiopia. And more than 80% of the water, it's coming from the highland of Ethiopia. So it was untenable actually for Egypt as well as Sudan to continue saying, no, we have a veto power. Ethiopia cannot do anything while we are taking all the share, while we are constructing dams for our people. That was not, if I can say, a Pan-African spirit. So in 1999, the Nile Basin Initiative was introduced. And the whole idea was actually for the 11 countries, downstream as well as upstream, to come together and then to found the technicality to understand between themselves and then to cooperate on how to share in a mutually beneficial way the Nile rivers. But then again, the Egyptian government of that moment refused anything because it was not in his benefits. In 2010, the country again came together and they met in Entebbe in Uganda, and a cooperative framework agreement was signed that was later known as the Entebbe Agreement. But again, the 2 countries that refused to sign, all the other countries signed the Entebbe Agreement. The 2 countries that refused to sign was Egypt and Sudan for 2 reasons. They wanted actually to continue having the lion's share that they got it during the British colonial occupation of Egypt and Sudan, and then to continue to have a veto power concerning any construction on all the other river. So faced with that, and with the events happening in different countries, especially in 2011, that's actually when I came to Ethiopia. In March 2011, the Ethiopian government rightfully, after the demise and the people want to rise up against the government, and when the Egyptian president was ousted out, the Ethiopian government profited from that and then announced the construction and started actually the construction of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. I remember at that moment, I was in Ethiopia. I came at that moment as the Deputy Director of the Horn of Africa Regional Environmental Network, comprising 8 countries in East Africa. I was actually part of the Nile Basin Initiative, and at one moment, actually for 2 years, I was the coordinator of that initiative. We had many discussions, but not only there was a reluctance on the part of the Egyptian government, but also there were some other interests. Basically, the European as well as the American government were trying to use actually Egypt as a proxy to how to say to oblige, if I can say, not only Ethiopia but all the other downstream river basin countries to accept, if I can say, kind of like the US dictate as well as the EU dictate. And I remember at that moment, the only way for the Ethiopian government to continue the construction of the dam was to appeal to its people to fund the dam. And I found at that moment that was amazing. It was really an amazing initiative, showing that like African people were rising up, and it was an amazing effort to see like people coming from different parts of Ethiopia, even the poor people, small farmer, like old people, giving, even if it was like 10 beer, 5 beer, because they understand actually that this dam was necessary for them to have, or for their children to have a better living in Ethiopia. And as you mentioned, as well, my brother Alex mentioned, the Ethiopia at many occasions said, as well as actually during the negotiation with Sudan, with the technical team coming from Sudan, Egypt, that actually this dam, the water will not be used for agriculture. Ethiopia is a blessed country that have enough water for agriculture, but this dam will be only for the production of electricity, which is a necessity, specifically in today's world with climate change. And maybe a lot of people doesn't know, but personally, I know, I worked in the environment, and I know that actually in Ethiopia, especially in the highland where it's very cold, people actually, what they do is they do a lot of deforestation. Deforestation then to make charcoal so they can cook, and so they can actually get heat in the night. And I was shocked when I learned that from 1950 to 2000, Ethiopia almost lost 80% of its forest cover because of this deforestation. So this dam will actually solve the problem of deforestation, and then also by creating a sustainable, renewable green energy, not only for Ethiopia, but also for the neighboring country. So that's why this dam was really an important, and from the information I have now, is actually things are changing. The geostrategic as well as the geopolitical situation of the Nile River, things are changing, and now actually the Egyptian as well as the Sudanese government are more willing actually to find a common ground. I will mention this during the period of the question and answer. I think I went to my 10 minutes. Thank you, Mahlet. I hope it was clear.
Thank you, brother Abdurrahman. That was, yeah, indeed, it was clear. Thank you for sharing your view. As you said, you know, against all the odds, Ethiopia has been able to build this dam. If anything, I think Ethiopia has been only consistent in what it has from the time that it has introduced the plan of the project, when Ethiopia was told or refused, or the project was rejected, when we asked, or when Ethiopia asked for a loan, by that time Emperor Haile Selassie said, we will build this dam. Maybe the future generation will do it when we have our own money. Otherwise, it was, for him, impossible to implement it. Now we are lucky in this generation to realize this. As you also pointed out, this dam is purely to produce, to produce or to generate electricity and bring power for more than 0.5% of its population. In fact, not only Ethiopia, also the region will benefit out of this electricity. It also, I think Ethiopia also brought, the African Union in the forefront when it wasn't even ready to play that role of, African solution to African problems. Also, we have it in paper in the commission. Yeah, so our next speaker is Brother John Johannes Magog from South Sudan. He is, allow me to briefly introduce him. He is the Executive Director of the Nile Youth Development Actions, which is a grassroots catalyzer focusing on advancing the local socio-economic development, meaning in the Nile Basin countries. He is also a champion of Agenda 2063 as a youth advocate. He has been a speaker at the World Youth Forum in 2019. He is also author of the book Forgotten Youth of a Nation. Once again, welcome, Brother John. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, for the great introduction, and also good evening, colleagues and comrades who are following online. And first, I would like to appreciate you, Mahlet, for organizing this session, for all of us to come and reflect on the critical issues like the Nile Basin issues and also the developmental issues in that part. So I'm bringing a different perspective on our discussion, and I appreciate the previous speakers, Mr. Alex and Abdurrahman, who give us also clear insights on the Nile Basin countries and the development that is going on. So I also echo their inputs in that regards. So just to brief everyone about what we do at the Nile Youth Development Actions, it is what Mahlet just described. Nile Youth Development Action is a grassroots catalyzer focusing on advancing the local socio-economic development in the Nile Basin countries. It was founded in 2017 to promote a shared vision and enhance cooperation among the referent countries through Nile diplomacy in an attempt to strengthen cooperation and sustainable development. It is a voluntary commitment from the youth of the Nile Basin to promote peace and security, regional integration, arts and culture, socio-economic development, and to enhance cooperation with a shared vision. And we are based in South Sudan as our headquarters. And also we have a branch office in Ethiopia. And our future engagement, it will be in all 11 Nile Basin countries, as Mr. Abdurrahman clearly mentioned. And I would like to repeat, the Nile Basin region includes Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And this is where we are in regard to our team and the youth who are volunteering under this organization. And our mission, this organization is conceived to build a solid organization to support young entrepreneurs, to create employment in the main sector of agriculture, energy and infrastructure, and minerals, and also to promote meaningful education that meets the current realities of job mismatch, and also to advocate for an inclusive youth engagement in co-leadership through comprehensive intergenerational dialogue. And this is what we are aspiring for, an inclusive, youth-led development for the present and the future generation. For the sake of this debate today on the GERD, we would like to share with you our experience in the Nile diplomacy series that we used to host online. We host this initiative for us to raise awareness, to advocate for cooperation, and also local action. I do remember Ms. Mahlet mentioned about African solution for African problems. So we need a local solution and local action for that. We also look into how we can support our own researchers in the continent, particularly in the Nile region and Nile Basin country. And also we conduct educational webinars on peace. And our main motto on this Nile diplomacy series is peace, equity, and cooperation. And this is what we are aspiring for. We can't talk about the current issues without mentioning the water conflict in the region and young people in specific, because as a youth organization, we are looking for the role of young people in water conflicts. We know water is a transboundary issue. Not only the water, but we have minerals, we have wildlife resources and so on, who can be shared. They can be shared by the Nile Basin countries or even across the countries. So we are looking into water conflict and young people. Young people are the most affected by water conflict because their entire future is dependent on it. The economy of an area is completely reliant on access to water because it influences farming, disease spread, and even access to education and electricity. Furthermore, if conflict breaks out over water, young people are the first called to fight or to protest for it. Young people who live in a region that is water insecure simply do not have the same opportunities or tools for a safe and healthy life. So we see how we can solve our conflict as African. What can we do when the water is scarce or when the water is a source of conflict for us? It is detrimental to our future. There are solutions, of course, through interventions and innovative tools and water policies. If we look, for example, the GERD negotiation back in 2017, we don't see young people in the table. We don't see young people taking their input into consideration. And if we are talking about the future, there's no future without young people. So our advocacy team is focusing on how we can bring young people into table, into being part of the solution of water conflict that can be peacefully and equitably resolved. The key to this solution is communities, young and old together. We don't just want to see policymakers all the one making decision in our behalf. We want to see also young people are part of it, guiding legislation. Not legislation guiding the communities, but we want to see also young people being part of that. What is our role as young people? Of course, yes, we want to elevate youth voices to be part of the decision making at level of government, creating a spaces for geographical diverse team to work together on projects. For example, GERD is a successful project that we really want to look at it as a region. What is the benefit of GERD for other members of the Nile Basin countries, 11 of them? For instance, as a young people, we can host collaboration like what Mahlet is doing. It's something that's really great in tackling our conflict and issues that affect us together. But as an African community, just not individually by country. So imagine having a platform where all the 11 basin countries are coming together and solving their issues. I'm sure we can have a better solution and a better approach in benefiting from the development project of each country, like benefiting from GERD, for example. We need also to bring like-minded young people like the group here from all around the basin region together to share ideas, providing young people with the tools to ask for positive change in their communities in relation to water conflict. And this is what we want to avoid as Nile Basin countries. We want to create cooperation. We want to create a society that are well informed, particularly where young people are engaged. With that, we can develop together cooperatively, and we hope the GERD can be a source of unity for all the Nile Basin countries. So I will stop there, and thank you very much, Mahlet. Over to you. I will be lucky to maybe answer some questions later on. But however, our work can be followed on our social media, our website, the Nile Youth Development Action. We are in all social media, so you can also see what we are doing in regard to our aspiration for a shared vision in the Nile Basin countries. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Did I mute myself? No, yeah. Thank you very much, Brother John McCook, for your view to share that. It's indeed important to be inclusive of the young generation in the region or even in the continent for that matter. Whatever decision is made, the young generation, accounting for more than 60%, I think in most of the countries, more than 60% of the population is young people. So it indeed have to include the younger generation. But I think Ethiopia's the way Ethiopia has mobilized its people, in various society, whether it's young people, whether it's the military, whether it's the women, from street vendors to the investors to rally behind this project. And because indeed it's a national flag carrier project, can be an example, to be how others also have to be inclusive of their population, young women, everyone, because they are indeed the future and the present as well. Yeah, thank you for reminding us that. Our next speaker is, who did we lose here? Somebody is out, but I think it's Brother Lambert. Are you with us? Yeah, now he's with us. Brother Lambert, you're there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Lambert? Lambert, can you hear me? Lambert, can you hear us? Okay, I think we will. Brother Pigbin, are you with us? Lambert or Pigbin, any one of you who can hear me, can you respond?
Mahlet, I had broken out a bit. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, now we hear you very well. So since now I know that you hear us, let me just introduce you briefly, and it will be over to you. Okay.
Okay, please.
All right. So yeah, Brother Lambert Ibitu is from indeed from Uganda, and he's a good friend of Connect Africa. He's not a stranger on this platform. He's a Pan-Africanist, but also most importantly, what's relevant to this discussion is also he's an irrigation engineer. He's also a champion of the No More movement. He has been an advocate of the No More movement. I think I said briefly about you. If there's anything I'm missing, you will say. Brother Lambert, over to you.
Okay. That long CV, and like to also thank my colleagues who have spoken before me for their deep insights into this. We have each given rather interesting perspectives, from Alex to John, then Mohammed, and I hope I can be able to carry on from there. Mahlet, the completion of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has deep and far-reaching connotations for Africa as a continent. And I would like to come from that perspective because naturally, when a project as gigantic, as big as the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is completed, it is natural that in a given place, we look at what are the lessons that we can take from such, such a feat. And I think that the GERD is particularly significant for Africa. But in so understanding the significance of the GERD to Africa, we've got to look at what are the lessons that different countries in Africa can take from the successful launch of the GERD, but also not just countries. What about regions? Because the GERD is sitting on a transboundary resource that is the Nile. So I would like to approach it from that perspective. What are the lessons for Uganda? What are the lessons for Kenya, Burundi, South Sudan from the successful launch of the GERD? Of course, it still has some way to go, but at least we have reached a stage where we're not sure that it's going to generate electricity, and the rest of the stages that are remaining will be completed. The GERD, I have insisted when I first began discussing the issues of the GERD way back last year, I was drawn to it on account of a number of factors, particularly the recognition of its importance to Africa as a project. There are so many interesting facts about the GERD which give us a basis for lessons and for moving forward, in different countries throughout Africa. So its completion is certainly a success. And Mahlet and dear colleagues, for us to see the GERD in light of the lessons it has for Africa, we've got to look at some of the challenges that Africa faces in terms of big projects like the GERD. One of the challenges we face, of course, in Africa as different countries is the question of financing mega projects. So how then does the GERD come in respect to this? We depend mostly on loans. We depend on IMF loans, World Bank loans, and I know of so many mega projects, including for electricity and in other areas in Africa, which cost less than by far less than what it is costing Ethiopia to construct GERD. And the question becomes, from a financing perspective, how has Ethiopia been able to successfully finance the GERD? How then does that become of importance to other African countries? In Uganda, we have, along the White Nile, we have a number of electric dams constructed, but all of them certainly have been constructed following a public-private partnership. And of course, that includes loans from foreign countries like China and then, of course, Europe. But the question then becomes because it's interesting how Ethiopia has been able to construct something about $5 billion US. I mean, that is huge, and it is certainly the biggest project in Africa. So for me, it is significant that other African countries like Uganda begin to ask that how is Ethiopia, what financing mechanism did Ethiopia adopt in order to be able to come forth and complete a project as mega as this one? And how can we learn from that? Because the issue of loans is really precious, and it's affecting so many countries in Africa. Every corner of Africa, we are talking about loans, and they are putting different countries in debt. And it is discouraging bigger projects, because we know if we are going to undertake a big project in Uganda, if we are going to undertake a big project in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Zambia, it doesn't matter where, we are going to have to do with loans. That is one of the problems that's affecting Africa. Now, how can we go about learning the lessons from Ethiopia? That is the first lesson that I think as Africans we need to learn, and that makes the GERD very significant for Africa. The other one is, Mahlet, you mentioned during your preamble that this is an intergenerational project, and there's something people miss in that respect. One of the challenges, again, that Africa faces as a continent is that you have usually big projects in different countries being started by a given leader, But you know, we have a challenge of governance. And over time, once a project has been begun by a particular leader, when it's overthrown, he goes with the project. That's basically the end of that particular project. Now, again, how does the successful completion of the GERD, particularly as an intergenerational project, impact on Africa? What are the lessons in that respect? This is my lesson. I mean, this is my thinking. I think that one of the lessons that Africans need to learn in different countries throughout Africa is the quality of leadership and how it's important for the continuity of projects. The overthrow, number one, for example, of one government or one leader should not mark the end of a project. And this is what Ethiopia has demonstrated. You indicated, Mahlet, at the start that it's an intergenerational project. And that means you spoke of it beginning straight from the time of Emperor Menelik. I also know that I've read about Emperor Haile Selassie indicating and saying this project will be constructed. We may not have the resources now, but it will be constructed by our children in future. And I know that Mele Zenawi was one who launched it in 2011. And I know that it is now Prime Minister Abiy who has brought that project to the finish line. Now, that is severely significant to Africa. At no one point, despite the changes in government, did this project, as big as it was, come to an end. Now, that is pernicious throughout Africa. It is so rare in different countries. I don't know whether somebody can name another one where a project as ambitious as the GERD, regardless of the sector, has been completed. I know of so many in Uganda, one or two, where the overthrow of one government marked the end of whatever project it had in place. But Ethiopia has proven that Ethiopia, through the GERD, has proven that it's possible to believe in an idea and to work over it regardless of the changes of government. And this is the second big lesson for Africa that African leaders need to learn, that governance issues, regardless of what they are, must not become a hindrance to the completion of major and significant projects like the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The third big lesson is this, and I want to start, to approach it by first indicating that the water resources are areas, especially transboundary water resources. Brother Abdul gave us a good background on the Nile and its reach, its origins from Ethiopia, how they meet from Uganda, and all that. And I guess we all know that, of course, it's 11 countries, made that clear. Now, it means the Nile is a transboundary resource. And experience the world over, not just in Africa, indicates that transboundary resources are either places and resources of contention and eventually conflict, or actually beginning points for cooperation within the areas that they traverse. Now, the history of the GERD and its build-up, within the Nile, has neared the point of contention. And we know, of course, I will not go into history. I will not talk much about the contention with with Sudan, with Egypt. But the point is that the GERD has also brought forward to us the understanding that we can successfully exploit resources that are transboundary, like the Nile, without necessarily getting into conflict. The question is, how do we go about that? And again, the successful completion of the dam so far has demonstrated that having a regional framework and depending on that regional framework more than on foreign powers is very significant to building consensus, because it is the states, it is the countries, it is the stakeholders in a given resource, in a given transboundary resource, in this particular case, the Nile, who have a stake in that resource. It is them who understand. And I was particularly impressed by Ethiopia's insistence on having the African solution to the problem that was besetting it with Egypt. While Egypt sought for the intervention of foreign powers like the US, I was particularly impressed by Ethiopia's insistence that we needed to agree locally within the Nile Basin, that we needed to have a regional framework. And we know that they are there. My colleagues have spoken about the Nile Basin Initiative and also know of the cooperative framework which is around. And I think going forward, this must become the locus of discussion, the locus of arriving at consensus regarding how we are able to utilize transboundary resources. So again, the GERD and the behavior of the Ethiopian government, the way it has handled it is very exemplary. And going forward, we need to learn that it is only through agreeing, it is only through a local consensus, it is only by sitting down as stakeholders in a given transboundary resource that we are able to arrive at consensus and be able to utilize resources not only sustainably but also peacefully. Because, like I indicated, transboundary resources can be sources of conflict. And at some point, there was fear that Ethiopia and Egypt particularly were actually going to enter conflict. And we still have contention. But again, I'll emphasize that the only way forward is not by involving people who do not have a stake in these resources, but by engaging ourselves within the Nile Basin. I am very much interested in discussions between Uganda, between Burundi, Rwanda, Ethiopia, all the 11 countries where the Nile traverses. This is where the discussions going forward on how to use the Nile must take place, not outside this. And for me, that is extremely significant. And that's the third lesson. How do we resolve challenges? How do we resolve the utilization of transboundary resources? We must do it based on local frameworks rather than foreigners. And that is the third lesson that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has taught us by its successful completion. So those three lessons for me are, of course, among so many others. But I would really like, perhaps I haven't been so clear, but I'd like to summarize them just in a minute. That number one, we have got to take these lessons to the pinch of salt. That the success of the GERD has given Africa a new imperative, a new way of looking at things, a new way of exploiting resources. For now, I can boldly take on my government in Uganda. Maybe next time when we have a project, and most likely that project is going to be of a lesser financial cost than the GERD. What excuse will the government of Uganda, what excuse will the government of Kenya, what excuse will any government in Africa be able to give for seeking for loans from IMF or the World Bank? Because I would simply say, but how did Ethiopia accomplish it without this kind of loans? So this is a challenge for African governments, but it also gives a point of reference for policy making within Africa on how to finance our own resources. It is possible. The GERD has demonstrated that a project as big as the GERD can be financed using local resources and using local, local resources and local initiatives such as Ethiopia has shown. I'm very interested, and I think legislators within Africa and policymakers must be interested in going about to understand on the financing mechanism. I've read a bit about it, the issue of the bonds and all that, the taxation systems. These are all interesting points, particularly for policymakers within Africa and in the different governments. And then the second, just to summarize it, I spoke about the issue of governance, that governance challenges, maybe the overthrow or the change of government in a given country, must not become a hindrance or a barrier to the completion of a project. This is a beautiful demonstration by Ethiopia that a vision born as far as the 1960s by Emperor Selassie and the rest has been completed in 2022. Abiy, that is significant to Africa. And emphasize this: Africa beset with conflicts, and there's no knowing when these conflicts will end. But we must agree, because projects like the GERD benefit all of us, regardless of which political divide you belong. Whether you belong to the left, to the right, it doesn't matter your political opinions. A project like the GERD is beneficial to all. So we must arrive at the understanding as Africans that regardless of our political differences, regardless of who is in government in the different African countries, if a project like the GERD is in place, we must support that project and see to it that we don't end it, but rather complete it. Just to finish up on that point, I was very impressed, on the day that the GERD was launched. I was on Twitter following the discussions, following the celebrations, and one of the things I observed was the spokesperson of the TPLF, and those who are pro PPP, pro Abiy in Ethiopia. Everybody was trying to take credit for the GERD. And while some people could look at that in bad light, I actually saw it in good light. Namely that regardless of the political divide, regardless of the differences between these people, they all appreciate that the GERD is significant to Ethiopia. And for me, that was very significant. Others saw it in a bad light. Maybe they said, no, everybody is trying to take credit. The GERD, others are saying this project is a Mahlet Ayele project. Others are saying this is for Prime Minister Abiy. For me, while others saw it in a bad light, I saw it in a good way. I say this because all these Ethiopians, because they're all Ethiopians at the end of the day, all of them appreciate that regardless of who was in power, the GERD is a good project. And that is very significant to Africa. I thank you, Mahlet. I think I've gone beyond my time. Thank you.
Muted. Yeah. Thank you very much, Lambert. Really, yeah, to emphasize it's a beautiful presentation as everybody else but also to remind us specifically from the point of view of what lessons Africa take. Yes, indeed, it is an intergenerational project because from Emperor Menelik up until now, Prime Minister Abiy, if you see, the first one are monarchical powers that were governing the country. Emperor Menelik and Emperor Haile Selassie. Emperor Menelik didn't do it when the British actually offered. By that time, they have their own cotton production in Egypt, and they actually saw that, oh, if we help Ethiopia, or if we do the dam here and then get the electricity where 86% of the water originates, it will indeed be very good for us. It will increase production of the cotton. So they actually offered to the emperor, but the emperor chose, Emperor Menelik chose its sovereignty rather than the economic freedom that it will bring, because he was not so sure that if this British come to the territory of Ethiopia, what is the guarantee to later on when this dam finished, they will go out, because he has seen enough what they did to the neighboring countries and how they colonized them. So he said, no, the economic freedom can wait. Our sovereignty is much important. So thank you, he said. And then Emperor Haile Selassie, the US has approached them, but of course we were denied of the loan. And then there was Mengistu, if you see, and then there is Meles Zenawi from EPRDF or TPLF, and then Prime Minister Abiy. All these leaders are very different in terms of ideology. You can see socialism, capitalism, monarchical, but when it comes to this national agenda or a national project, they were all behind it. That's the lesson that we have to take. That's the lesson that Africa should take. When it's a national project, regardless of that, we are divided internally for whatever reason. We should stand behind our national project. And another important lesson, just to add on this, is Ethiopia not only showed that everybody can unite when it's a national project, regardless of our political differences, but also it has passed that torch light to Africans, in spite of what we are going through, when the world is against us, against all this odds that we are going through. You all have been with us for the past 16 months, what we were going through. And, the whole world was against us. As the Prime Minister said, if it was in his speech during the 35th ordinary of the African Union Summit, if it was not for our African brothers and sisters, actually our existence as a nation has been in danger. So if we did not have that movement, that support from our African and brothers, and we really insisted on our, sovereignty, we have differences, but we all came together, when it is a national agenda. In fact, from challenges, we are also able to teach there are opportunities that come from during this conflict or war that Ethiopia has been going through. The GERD was one of the projects that brought everybody on the same page, that brought us on the same page. So there are opportunities out of challenges. So and also to bring, to be consistently to advocate for African solution to African problems. It was not the African Union who came first and offered, no, I have the mandate or the political mandate and the capacity to solve this issue. It wasn't the African Union, let's be honest. It was Ethiopia, where Egypt was going all over except Africa. It was Ethiopia. Okay, if you are not complying with what we agreed in 2015 with that the principles of declaration, then the only place that we have to go if a fourth party has to be included beside Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, it should be African country. And that is when the Prime Minister Abiy went to Rwanda, and also President Ramaphosa, the then chairman of the union for 1 year at that time. So that's how it came to. So it brought that Africa has the capacity, it brought Africa in the face of the world, that African Union has the mandate and also the capacity to solve its own issue. And basically because it's happening in Africa, and all these involved parties are in Africa. The water is in Africa. Why should it go outside of Africa? So it also brought now other countries, for whatever problems that they're facing, I think they can rely on the African Union and bring it to the face of the world, that to do its obligation, to do its duty. So there are many lessons that can be learned from this. Thank you, Brother Lambert, for bringing that up. I needed to say this. Last but not least, we have with us Brother Pigbin Odmiwengu from Kenya. Are you with us, right? Okay. Yeah. Speaking of young people, so here we are. We have Brother John from South Sudan, where that we have to be inclusive of young people. So Brother Pigbin is from Kenya. He's a young aspirant presidential Kenya for 2022. If I am wrong, you will correct me. He is also by profession a teacher and also Google digital skills trainer. He's a founder and party leader of, meaning the political parties that he founded, Accountability and Transparency Party. He's a founder and leader also of Youth for Youth movement, and he has served as a Secretary General for University of Imbu Student Association, and he's also a member of Africa Youth Leadership Forum, Young Africa Leadership Initiative. Yeah, so it's not by luck that Brother Pigbin is an aspirant presidential. He has been indeed trained in leadership also by Trust Age University and other institutes. We are happy that he is here with us. Welcome again, Brother Pigbin, and over to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Are you getting me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I do appreciate this opportunity. I see my friend Alex here. Hi, Alex. How are you? Okay. Anyway, my name is Pigbin Odimwengu. I'm a young presidential aspirant in my country. I'm a Pan-Africanist, of course. And I'm a politician. And of course, as you've said, I founded different organizations that spearhead youth for youth leadership. My latest organization that I'm also spearheading now is called Youth for Youth. Is an organization that tries to ensure that youth come out to vote their youth aspirants or their fellow youth aspirants. I believe that the problems facing Africa will only be solved with the young aspirants, and once young people get into leadership. We are so advocate all over, but we lack the opportunity in the leadership sector. And therefore, I'm trying to ensure that I come with a platform whereby young people will go out for political positions and unite together so that we can share the cost of running campaigns. Because the politics in Africa is very expensive, and that's why young people are not participating in leadership. So I'm trying to ensure that I unite these young people together, then inspire more young aspirants to come out. Then together we go and face the ballot. So it's what I'm doing under the Youth for Youth movement. It's a platform I'll be using also to do my campaign. And every plans are underway and things are moving on okay. Towards my reaction on GERD, of course, I would say that energy is the source for investment. companies and productions depend on energy. When the energy is limited, it means the cost of production and the cost of goods will be very high. So it's very good news that, of course, GERD was, of course, officially launched, irrespective or despite of course, challenges that it posed to Sudan and Egypt. But we must embrace, of course, and one way or the other, those challenges must be addressed in a better way so that we move on together. It's of a bigger benefit for Africa, and Africans lacking, of course, electricity. Our check is megawatt is around 5.5, which is 5,000 megawatts. Those are very big megawatts compared to what is in my country, Kenya. And I've seen my president, of course, trying to make a negotiation so that we can have a tap of that electricity to our national grid. But I've also seen the commitment from Ethiopian government saying that they will only tap to this because it's like over 60% of Ethiopians are not, of course, connected to electricity. That's, of course, a total of around 110 million Ethiopians that are not in the electricity. And you are trying to tap this gap to the national grid so that you increase the number or you increase the access of electricity by Ethiopians. I understand also there are so many dams apart from this one that are running either irrigation and, of course, also electricity. But let me go straight to that dam. You see, in the last EU meeting or summit, it was very clear that, of course, Africa needs to tap its energy. We have so many rivers that can at least generate for us energy in a cheaper price. You remember in Congo, we have, of course, a river there that's capable of getting us over 11,000 megawatts that can also tune to the best part of this. In Africa, I'm told GERD is going to be the top of the highly hydropower generator. In the world, I'm told is around number 3 or number 7 in the world. So to me, I'll take it like, of course, the cost of production of power affect a lot of cost of production of course, goods in our African country. So it's a good news that once we have electricity and generation of power, that we might reduce the cost of production, and therefore we can share this the rest of the countries surrounding Ethiopia. So the bigger aspect, I see this as a good news to many countries that surround Ethiopia, and they need to go and have a talk with, of course, the governments to see how we can share this, as my country has started that talk. And it should also elevate the life and the livelihood of Ethiopians by the access of power, of course, so that many people can at least their life improve. That's how I see it to that other side. But another thing that I must point that this project was carried out by Ethiopian government, by the Ethiopian people, without loans, at a tune of close to $2 billion, which is close to maybe 200 billion. 200 billion to be raised by Ethiopian government and without loans is something that is commendable. Of course, one of the challenges we are facing as African nations is that most of our leaders are too much and are after the cheap loans from the Western unions and either China, Eurobond, or whatever, IMF. And these loans are coming with serious, of course, we call them the structural adjustment requirement or mechanism. Like in my country today, cost of everything else has shoot up. You see the cost of food is going up. But these things are coming with IMF demands, you see. Why should we depend on IMF to help us build our countries, you see? And the demands are very expensive. And in fact, when they come again, our leaders loot the resources. Like in my country, a standard gauge railway that traveled at a speed of 120 kilometers was constructed with 360 billion, while GERD is only 200 billion. So see, there's a need of African leaders to reprioritize their need and also to ensure that they reduce their appetite for loans, you see. Because, of course, the long-term impact of these loans and repayment will be affecting us, the younger generation, so much. So that's one thing I need to note and echo, of course, what the Ethiopian government did. Constructing GERD power generation without loans from external bodies or external countries is a good thing to do. And also being constructed, of course, with part of Ethiopians is another thing that I must echo. Moving forward, Ethiopia, of course, Sudan and Egypt must come together. They must agree in their challenges, because you see Sudan is having a challenge that, of course, Ethiopia is having a challenge that it can reduce their power generation of the water, because Ethiopia depends on Nile much for irrigation and for water. But you see, to Sudan, they are more happier that at least it can control their floods a bit and ensure that there's no serious flooding. But I think we need to move together. I'm told the launch of this generation power is against the 2015 agreement of non-interference of any party with the GERD generation. But I believe we'll find peace. And to Ethiopian, I see this as a bright light for them. To neighboring countries, let's embrace this and see what you can tap to that generation so that you can also increase the power visibility in our countries. Meanwhile, I would say that, of course, the space of young people is also somehow limited, but I believe that it must provide more opportunity for more industries and for more startups so that our young people can get some job and can have to improve their life. What I'll echo and I'll, of course, stress on is that the young people must come out to take over the leadership of Africa. The young people should not only complain of the old leadership in Africa, where they are not ready to be the leaders. You need to present yourself as an alternative leadership, and presenting yourself, it means that you must go for these elective political positions. If you believe that your views and your ideologies are very what, then we need to go out and actually represent ourselves in the leadership. You see, of course, many young people form the big chunk of the voters, but if they are voting leaders and yet young people are not to be voted in as presenting themselves as starting leadership, it will be very hard for us. We, the young people, know what is benefit of us for the future generation and this generation. To the older generation, of course, they are too much concentrated on what is good for them at this generation. So I am challenging young Africans, just as I'm going out and taking this step to be a president in my country. I know that we form the biggest population of the voters, and therefore, if we use that well, we can have African young leaders all over. I want to say that again. Actually, we must stop the Western dominance in Africa. I'll say that the whites should not give us loan, but rather treat their loans as repayment of the suffering we've gone through as Africans to build their states and their nations during the slavery trade. They must also not ask us for more loans because they have taken a lot of our mineral from Africa to benefit themselves. They must not also ask us for more loans because you see, even Corona did not come from Africa, but African countries are now paying heavily for this. So these people should just see like they're paying us back whatever they're taken from Africa. We must demand that and ensure that we move forward. But I advocate for African Free Continental Trade Agreement that was signed, and I ask African leaders to find solutions within Africa. If African countries can come together, we can make Africa great. We have all resources needed in this continent. Let us come together and ensure that we partner in projects that can help each of individual countries for the benefit of Africa, irrespective of the different countries they're in. This will be my last call and my last challenge to all African leaders and to young people that they should go out and take over the leadership. But with Ethiopian, I'll also ask you that, of course, that power should bring more unity, and we should not see more clashes and war as it was between the Tigray and the Ethiopian government. Let's treat this thing like a gold and a blessing to your country, and let's share it to the generation and the country that are neighboring you. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and in case of any question, I'll be available to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother Pigbeam, for sharing that with us. Indeed, okay, the project is first. It's a more than $4 billion project, but also, yeah, to bring those 2 points, I think, at least for me, the young people has to be inclusive. That has been becoming persistent, yes, and also there's another point that you raised: the loan that is given from, mostly that's coming from international organizations, finance organization, and also maybe from bilateral relationship, just Western individual countries. It should be seen as a reparation from, what Africa has been suffered by exploiting the resources of the continent. That's a different view. Yeah, perhaps we need to, work on that. So yeah, that covered us. I think everybody has spoken now. I have some questions that I wanted, to ask for each one of you here. So I will use the same order that we used before. So I will start with Brother Abdurrahman. I don't see, in the middle to bring any questions here from the comment side. So yeah, I will continue with my own questions. Brother Abdurrahman, this is to you. As we all know, there was initial and still nowadays, from the time that Ethiopia has introduced the project back in 2000, in the end of 99 or in 2000, actually, if I'm correct, and then it has actually put the first foundation in 2011. There was a protestation from Egypt consistently, and also, from Sudan on and off. So this protestation by Egypt against the schedule, first of all, from that the dam should not be there, this plan should not be implemented. Sorry, at all. And then when the dam is there in 2011, when they are awake of the Arab Spring, the dam is there, founded and launched. Then it has been, the reason for it is the filling of the dam, some operational technicalities against the schedule of the filling of the dam, and also, so yeah, regarding to this, what do you think of the motivation behind this attitude? It's consistently being against this project and sticking to that colonial agreements and bringing just so many reasons just to protect the colonial agreement. One time it shouldn't be there, it's a threat, then it's about the feeling, then it is about something else. So what do you think is the attitude? Is it it's merely unfounded fear, since we have not heard any water crisis in Egypt? It was just, or is it just a colonial mentality of feeling, superior that was being propagated by their media and, of course, government? What's your take on this?
Thank you, Mahlet. I hope you guys are hearing me. I will say that actually one of the biggest problem we are facing in our African continent. There is a lot of problems. My colleague actually mentioned a couple of them, but one of them is actually the lack of cooperation between ourselves. We tend to always see each other through the lens of the former colonial power or through different other countries. That's the reason why I was congratulating you at the beginning, saying that we need more this kind of channel of communication between African countries, so then we can bring more, more clearance, more knowledge, so the majority of the people cannot fall easily into the propaganda. We see actually even what's happening now with in East Europe. We can see actually when we look at the media today, the level of propaganda. So unless the African countries and African people start building their own communication channels and bringing up their own narration, the other will always try to do it. And when it comes to the GERD, yes, it's true that actually there were, and when we're talking about Egypt as well as Sudan, we cannot say that actually is the majority. There are differences. So there were some interests within Egypt or in Sudan who were actually in favor of actually keeping things the way the colonial power left it. But then during the Nile Basin Initiative, when we brought actually our brothers and sisters from Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia together, and then they start discussing, they understand actually that this can be a win-win for everyone. And indeed, actually, the construction and the completion of the GERD, it's a win for everyone in Africa. My colleagues actually mentioned that actually there are many lessons to be learned, and it's up to us actually to bring this lesson that can be replicated in different parts of the world. For example, my colleague from Uganda was mentioning that the way Ethiopia actually financed, because today one of the mechanisms actually to subdue a government, a sovereign country, to subdue, to control it, to pressure it, it's actually through financial mechanism, through loan or through debt. But we have to find other ways. And I think one of the biggest lessons of the GERD effectively is the way actually the Ethiopian people came together to finance through their saving the GERD. It shouldn't be IMF, World Bank on one side and Chinese debt trap on the other side, which is actually another way of actually pressuring this African country today when they bring the issue of saying, oh, yeah, but you're going to be under the hand of the Chinese. No, we should always look African solution for African problems. The other problem being the biggest problem is actually energy, how to generate energy. And the GERD is actually bringing a solution in this level. Any country that is trying to develop their country, and we know that today one of the biggest problems that most of the African countries are facing is the youth level. We know that the African continent youth population is more than 70%. So how to create job, how to create more entrepreneurship, how to create more small industry without at the same time falling on the other planetarian problem, which is the climate change. And there are also actually many how to say, very contracting agreement that was reached during the Paris climate agreement. I was part of the African expert delegate at COP11, and it was really very difficult to see how actually developed countries were already trying to put on the agreement different mechanisms so that Africa will not develop itself, and Africa will continue just to be a place where they dump their product. So yes, the dam, the inauguration of the GERD is actually answering that problem by providing a clean, affordable energy. Yes, country will be able to develop themselves without actually producing more carbon dioxide. And then the issue of transboundary. Yes, the issue of transboundary.
You have less than a minute, Brother Abdurrahman.
Okay, many mentioned actually that Ethiopia actually was actually pushing for this principle of African solution for African problems. I'm glad to say that today both Egypt and Sudan are in agreement with that, and they found a way of actually that Ethiopia will provide some of this electricity, because the GERD will produce more than 6,400 megawatts, and this is the double of what Egypt is in need. So yes, this kind of the discussion that started. Another, if I can say, example will be the agreement that was signed between Ethiopia and Djibouti, where Ethiopia is providing already more than 75% of the energy of Djibouti, which is clean energy again. So that kind of collaboration can be an example for many other countries when it comes to the river, and especially when it comes to transboundary issues. So we're talking about, again, clean energy, yes, African solution for African problem, and then also how to mobilize African saving in order to actually build the needed project for Africa development. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Abdurrahman. Yeah, okay. So, Alex, Brother Alex, can you hear me? You are muted. Let me just check. Yeah.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah. So this is for you, Alex. As you know, as a youth advocate of the normal movement and being a founder of the Africa Act now, I know that you and your colleagues are very active in what you're doing. So if we let me take you back to the speech of which, for me, I think you may agree or disagree, the speech of the Prime Minister of Ethiopia during the AU summit has a lot of Pan-African elements. You know, it brought, you know, the aspiration of our ancestors and, you know, reminding us that political unity is indeed important. for us, if we want to be represented in a dignified way in face of the world. And also it realized the current challenges that as an African that we are facing, having a seat at the UN Security Council and other things also. And also it put, forwarded some solutions, how we go forward, by looking at things in a Pan-African way, if we want to realize that the Africa we want. So this was more or less the theme of the Prime Minister during the summit, and he even went on to say that, meaning to quote that we want, he said, quote, we want a prosperous, equitable Africa driven by the ideas of Pan-Africanism. So when it comes to GERD and also other national projects that African countries are going to launch or are already implementing, and when they have this kind of problem, whether it's in terms of loan or other, it could be a colonial agreement, anything that they face, how do you think the normal movements and young people like you can take forward and make it try to see it from a Pan-African point of view? How do you think you play a role in this?
Well, thank you, Sister Mahlet. Well, normal movement is not individual movement. Is everybody's movement. Each and everybody has the right to get involved. As African, we should come together with one voice in order to stand together and fight the neocolonialism and imperialism. Here in Africa, for example, the speech which His Excellency Abiy Ahmed made during the African Union session, he said that we should also bring our own media house in Africa. He proposed that so that they can fight false propaganda regarding our African continent. So the issue of dam as well, the dam, this issue of dam is for all African countries that are going to benefit. It's not only Ethiopia is going to benefit from this project. Even other African country has supported this project, though there is some disputes. And this dispute is going to finish. It's not going to be forever. So as Africans, we should come together and find our own solutions. Like African Union should really get involved so that they can solve this issue as soon as possible. As the water is flowing, as the government said previously, it said that the water started flowing as it used to flow. So I don't see that they have to be any problem. Egypt is our sister country. South Sudan and Sudan, they were also sister countries. Why should we fight over water? Before we were born, we found the Nile here. Our grandfathers were there. They found the Nile there. So we should find a solution rather than cursing one another. In order to develop, each country should support one another. Other countries' prosperity and other country development is also my country development. Because what we are fighting to unite, not to be divided as Africans. If one country has a big project which is going to sustain and bring development to that country or bring prosperity, so we should support that country in order to develop. When that country develop, even other countries will develop with no question asked. So in regards to this issue of coming together and African people taking loans in other countries, IMF or World Bank, these loans comes with conditions. So you have to pay interest rates. So even that money, when they come in African coffers, they don't use them as supposed to be used. As supposed to be used in order to develop in the community or other sectors. So this money are used in the corruption, in the other issue, in the people's in the people's pockets. So because of corruption which is happening in Africa, this is very difficult. There's a hindrance here in Africa. Big issue is the corruption. Even if they are taking those loans, if
we cannot hear you, Alex. Can you hear us? Alex, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but background voice
Can you hear
is
me?
really. Yeah, we do hear you. Yeah, you have less than 1 minute. Please summarize.
Okay, what I was saying, here in Africa, we should fight corruption. We should stop being greedy. We should love one another, help each other. When African, they are in the high position or they have something, they want to suppress those one who don't have. So in order to eradicate poverty in Africa, we should come together and support one another if you want to move forward as one continent. That is in short.
Thank you, Alex, for that. Brother John, you're there?
Yes, Mahlet.
Okay, yeah. As we know, the Agenda 20, as you are, because you are a champion of Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 it has 7 aspirations, and to implement those, we have divided, prolongated for 50 years, but also in order to achieve that, divided by 10 years, we have these national projects which has to be implemented in 10 years. So we are just ending that first 10-year projects. So in that 10-year plan, actually, it has one of the plans is up to 20 from the time it has been conceived, meaning from 2013 up to 2023. One of these, enablers of the 7 aspirations is that the Inga Dam project. And the Inga Dam project, if we see that GERD, maybe not continentally, GERD will be able actually to achieve what is kept as a plan or as an objective to achieve by the Commission on a regional wise, or in the Horn of Africa or within the neighboring countries. So taking into consideration of that, if I ask you, on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, if you have to rate the African Union's contribution in protecting such projects, one of them being GERD, from the propaganda from the Western countries, and also like international organizations and so-called medias. I would say so-called because they are purely advocating the agenda of their government. Do you think the Prime Minister, by emphasizing that African solution to African problems, has been justified now?
Thank you, Mahlet, for this question and also bringing up the question of Agenda 23 and its implementation. Yes, of course, it is our agenda as a continent, and we look into implementing the aspiration in different contexts. Given the fact that we are running behind the schedule of Agenda 23 and in different aspects, not only the infrastructural needs of the continent, but also in the policy aspect in terms of free trade and also free movement of people and so on. So these are the things that we need to look at as a continent to really look into what hinders the implementation of our aspiration that we call an African aspiration, the Africa Agenda for Development. So yes, there is a challenges, and one of my colleagues also mentioned in the discussion that the financial contribution and the financial resources are issues that affect those mega projects of the continent. So we need to relook into our own resources on how we can finance our developmental agenda, particularly financing the Agenda 23 itself. It is a very good blueprint for the development of the continent. But however, if there is no needed resources, it will not deliver to the expectation of the Africans. That's why we need to see on how to finance our developmental agenda. Looking into external influences, it comes through different interests, of course, but however, we need to strengthen African collaboration, because how can we collaborate better for a project that really promote the socio-economic development in our countries and in the continent? INGA project is one example, but up to now, it is not picking up. It is a big question that we really want to see why our continental project are not really going forward. And the GERD is a determination of Ethiopian people to make it happen. So we really want to think from that aspect on, as a continent, what are our challenges? What are the challenges that we really want to see? The review of Agenda 23, yes, it happened. There is 2 reports now released since it launched 10 years ago, and we look into the other 30 plus years toward the implementation of Agenda 23. But if we are not really realistic on what we can achieve, on what our challenges are, I think we will fall short in achieving the Agenda 23. So it's a question of what hinders us from developing this continent. We have everything, we have the resources, but utilization of these resources is what matters. And then looking into internal cooperation, because if we are cooperating as a continent, and the cooperation with the external world will not be a primary issue for us, because if we have this collaboration among ourselves, I think our Agenda 23 can be implemented. So we need to develop those aspects, and particularly I always focusing on the role of the young people in that, because if we leave it only to the current generation, the sustainability of it will be missing. So if we want to think of Agenda 23, we also need to bring the young people on board. Young people are the majority, and I always say the continent have only 2 resources. One, it's the young people. Number 2, the natural resources that we have. The waters can generate electricity, and a lot of resources can also contribute to the sustainable development of the continent. So yes, we need to own our narrative, the African narrative, because we know the Western influence in propaganda and creating what is not us, what is not African. So the initiative of the Prime Minister of having a continental media is something that really can encourage the unity among the continent, the integration that we want. Because if we have a continental media that is speak African voices, I think that will really explain to the world about the true Pan-Africanism, about the true Africa that we are aspired to achieve. So I will end there for that, but I would like to mention a good cooperation, particularly South Sudan and Ethiopia, have a great cooperation. I'm not be able to maybe to represent the government here, but we have a relation that back to 1962. So it is a cooperation that was there before the independence of South Sudan, given the fact that we have a lot of borders that we share, Gambela region, even in southern part of Ethiopia, we have also shared ethnic group, and we have those cooperation that we want to strengthen. particularly on security, on trade, on development, and also sharing infrastructure, also sharing the electricity to the neighboring countries, particularly South Sudan. So we have this commitment since 2008. We have an agreement signed in 2017 between the government of South Sudan and Ethiopia to actualize and strengthen that cooperation. And in 2020, it was revived for it to be implemented. It includes roads, transportation, trade, investment, and custom. And these are the things that we want for our integration. And also the aspiration for South Sudan also to receive electricity from Ethiopia. It is something that really can boost the relationship between the countries. So we want to see a free trade. We want to see access to roads. Because if we are neighboring countries, why don't we accept our borders with roads and infrastructure? So these are the things that we want to really look into implementing the Agenda 2063. It is our collective action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother John McGough. Yeah, as you said, I think you are an advocate of for the inclusion of young people. Maybe that will answer the problem, because for me, let me reflect. When the African Union, when the GERD has been by the then president of the US publicly from the Oval Office was told that it can be bombed, no statement was made or come out of the African Union. And also when such issues happens inside the territory of the continent, the Union again, or the African Union did not show that proactiveness, or even to carry out its responsibility in terms of solving such problems. Many times what we observe is when something happens, this is what we see in Western Africa right now, when Mali, Burkina Faso, these countries have been facing a coup d'etat, for right or wrong. That's not what I'm trying to address here, but also but what I'm trying to say is the first countries that talk about it are either the previous colonizers or the Western countries, rather than the African Union. Indeed, ECOWAS has issued a statement, but also often when the African Union seems to take the subject, it's kind of hijacked by others to show that to tell us you cannot do it by your own. Okay, like we are in agreement with what ECOWAS said, or what with the mediation of Olusegun Obasanjo during the conflict in Ethiopia. So yeah, not to put it on you, to throw it back at you, Brother John, but I'm just saying we do lack that protection from our own the African Union. Yes, indeed, the African Union is not just an organization maybe like an EU that has that authority to give orders for individual countries. It's merely on each leaders. It has its own complication. But yeah, it's important to reflect on that for me.
Mahlet.
Yes.
Mahlet.
Yes.
Just I was laughing because what you were saying are correct, actually. How many times the African Union, actually, especially at the leadership, they totally betrayed the African continent. But what's happening now in Ukraine, actually, they were actually faster than even the European community, and they came out with a press communique. So I agree with my brother. I think it's time to clean up, actually, our representative of the African Union and bring more youths there. Thank you.
Yeah, the young is important. Yeah, more youth is indeed needed. We are the present and we are the future. True. Brother Lambert, coming back to you, from in continuation of what you have reflected in your previous presentation, taking into account that GERD is indeed the biggest dam in Africa, and I think the seventh in the world. with China, of course, having the biggest dam in the world, and DRC has appealed to other African countries and regional countries specifically to build the Grand Inga Dam, which is also part of the enablers of the Agenda 2063. Which some believe that this is a big step up in power generation in Africa. The problem has been financing, but Ethiopia looks to have gained insight into this problem and solved it by mobilizing its own people and financing it all the way until we are here now. I think almost 84% of the project. Do you think that this model of financing projects is the way to go by taking the example of GERD? Are you talking? We are not. Let me see.
Sorry, yeah. I was muted. Thank you.
Okay.
I was saying thank you for the question, and also thank you to my fellow panelists for their submissions. Like I indicated in my earlier submission, Mahlet, the challenge that African countries face in terms of infrastructure, the constraint to the development of big projects is how do you finance these projects? It is not exactly true that we usually don't have the money, and maybe jumping ahead, Ethiopia has basically proved that it is not true that we don't have the money. We always have the money. I think what is important is and what we lack in Africa, maybe in the different African countries, is one, the political will, but also the legitimacy, among the common people of a given project, and then of the government in place. If it's in terms of resources, I think that there is no other continent in Africa. I mean, there's no other continent that is better than Africa. I think we are one of the richest continents in terms of resources, whether it's human. I mean, it really, Africa is way on top. Our failure, like I said, is largely governmental, and the other one is the question of legitimacy. People are always going to sacrifice for anything, provided that they are convinced that the project is for the good of themselves in the present and in the future. And like I indicated, Ethiopia has already demonstrated that. What now we need throughout Africa in the respective countries, and I hope we are going to take a leap from this, is that we have got to begin to look within ourselves. And you see, Ethiopia has done it at a national level. Even in a local level, you can even come back to the family. You can come back to your local district. I don't know how areas are clustered are named within Ethiopia and other places, but I know that the lowest level of government in my country, Uganda, is normally at the village level. The village level is the first smallest community that you have as you climb up the community, and then of course regions. Even at that lowest level, people have mechanisms of getting money. A community of 1,000 people, if each may not be able to contribute 1 million shillings, but each can contribute small money, and the collective eventually is sufficient to do something big. And at a national level, and in terms of the big project like the GERD, that's what Ethiopia has demonstrated. And it comes with first the people accepting, and then understanding that whatever is being required to be built is something that is for the good of themselves in the present, and of course for the future. And I was also trying to understand the whole arrangement of the financing of the Ethiopian thing, the issue of bonds. I haven't understood it so perfectly, but I also know that it has
Brother Lambert, I think he's freezed. Lambert, maybe you should go out and log in again. We can't hear you. I don't know if you hear me. Yeah, maybe he should come back again. Let me just try to solve this for him to finish his point. Sorry for that technical problem. You can throw ideas until Lambert comes.
I would like to say that the point actually raised by our brother from Uganda, Lambert, it's really excellent, and I hope actually that there will be a written actually paper actually documenting that experience on how Ethiopia actually mobilized the people and then to be able to finance almost like 50% of the total cost of the GERD dam. So that's an important element. And in the meantime, just I would like to mention that today it's more than important that we have to find our own African solution. Let us remember when we had actually one African solution that was brought by the late Muammar Gaddafi. He was assassinated by the same people actually that colonized Africa and that are still actually working hard to make sure that we stay totally underdeveloped so they can actually use our resource and export through our things. Okay. I think my brother came back.
Yeah. Yes, Lambert.
My internet, you know, this is Uganda. my internet got finished. So I had to load it.
We cannot be stopped by challenges. That's what makes us stronger. So yeah, please continue.
Let me just conclude. I was taking long. So I was saying that it is less about the lack of money. It's about the mechanisms with which we are able to convince our people to get this money. Do you know one of the things I usually think about? It's a bit related to this, but perhaps it's from a broader perspective. You see, Africa as a continent has different regional organizations. In Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, we have the East African Community. You have SADC, you have ECOWAS, you have IGAD, and we are faced. This seems unrelated, but you will. I think the point will eventually come to pass. Can we not have one of the challenges we face, and that's also a governmental challenge, is the idea of poverty. When you look at, for example, the rampant coup d'etats in West Africa and in South Africa, one of the precipitants actually is poverty, the apparent lack of resources. Now, one of the mechanisms I've been thinking, maybe at a regional level, could be that how can these regional organizations begin to have some sort of maybe a fund with which to aid, you know, because we speak about foreign aid coming from USAID, UK aid. Can't we have the same concept of aid? Maybe in this case, it wouldn't necessarily be aid, but would be development to something like that within the different regions. Within East Africa, if we have a resource that needs to be exploited and it needs a lot of money, what is difficult with the financing mode that Ethiopia had to a regional level? Because at the end of the day, like we have all observed, these transboundary resources become areas of cooperation within the places that they traverse. Yeah. If we went back to a position where we can assume Ethiopia didn't have the capacity to finance the dam, is it also weird for us to ask that could the whole of the Horn of Africa have financed that dam if they are taken to have resources from within those countries within the Horn of Africa? Because at the end of the day, I know that one has governmental challenges here and there, but it's basically about the mechanisms, and perhaps at a countrywide level, we need to adopt the mechanism that Ethiopia used to get the money from its people. But also at a regional level, if a resource is going to benefit the entire region, like the GERD, we can also have resources and mechanisms of having a particular fund contributed to by countries within that region and that are stakeholders in a particular resource. And I'm just to conclude, my argument is that we need to look at creative mechanisms of financing resources within our countries, but also within the regions, especially if the resource that we're looking at exploiting, like the Nile, is a transboundary resource. Thank you, Mahlet.
Thank you, Lambert. So I was faced by some technical problems like you, so I was away for a couple of minutes. But yeah, last again, but not least, this is a question for Brother Pigbin. Are you there? Pigbin? Or is it from me a problem? Maybe he's muted. Do you hear me, Brother Pigbin? He has muted himself again. Brother Pigbin, do you hear me? Pigbin? I hope I'm saying it right. Okay. Brother Pigbin. Okay. Yeah. So that was my. Is he talking to me or? I hear a background voice.
I think Big Pin has.
Okay. Yeah. I have muted. Are you there?
I think Big Pin has taken a pause slightly, Mahlet. Perhaps you can.
Yeah. Let me just mute him. Yeah. Okay. I think we have covered all the questions, which one question that maybe I will take it whoever wants to address that. If we can compare, the diplomacy that has been made by Ethiopia, lobbying around the region and the Riparian States to the African Union, and then, the diplomacy that has been taken by Egypt, mostly insisting taking it outside of Africa. Does anyone, if we can just compare this and reflect it, from what has been achieved now?
I can't hear anybody. Can you hear me?
Is that Brother Pig? No. Yeah, I had a question for you, but you were not there. So if we have time, I will come back to you. But this one is for anyone who wants to take it on. If we can just make a comparison, on that type of diplomacy, in the continent, sticking to the region, to the African Union, and also taking out issues outside of the continent. Can anyone wants to reflect on that? Yes, Abdurrahman. Yeah, this would be, I think, our last.
I think yes, Ethiopia
in 2 minutes,
is
right, Abdurrahman?
The capital. It's actually it's the capital where the African Union is headquartered. At the same time, yes, Ethiopia actually did something great with the GERD. We didn't finish actually. We didn't talk. We just mentioned a couple of elements. I hope we can continue this kind of discussion, being able to start the GERD and then to complete it and then to inaugurate it.
I can hear you. I can hear somebody speaking, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, brother.
Yeah, we hear you. But now Brother Abdurrahman is talking. Yeah. So, but we do hear you.
So
okay?
what I would like to conclude is actually Ethiopia actually did it well, but now it's up to us actually on how to bring that success, because we are facing a lot of propaganda We have to teach the young people. We have to teach the other brothers on this success. And this success is not actually on the loss of someone else. As I said, it's a win-win. It's a win-win for all Africa. As well as the case I mentioned, when it comes to, for example, Djibouti and Ethiopia, this also in terms of integration, it's a good example. But again, this also is bringing too much responsibility on the shoulder of the Ethiopian government, because the Nile, or it's not the only river. There are many other rivers, and there are a lot of other contentious when it comes to other rivers. So the thing that I'm afraid is actually we shouldn't let the Ethiopian government to face alone the pressure from the IMF, the international institution, as well as the former colonizer. And we should actually be proud of one African country do something successful, and we should try to replicate that. And my conclusion will be the GERD was a successful project. Still, we have to study it so we can profit from the many lessons of the GERD for the rest of Africa.
Okay, it's the three of us here. I think just on time, maybe 1 minute above the said hour. But thank you everyone. I think this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much for your time, for your commitments. That was indeed really brilliant. For all your views that has been shared. We will continue to talk not only on GERD, but also what concerns us as an African. That's the motive and behind this platform. As a Pan-African, to look at things from the African point of view, that's where our redemption lies, to when we start to see our issues collectively as an African. So I will take a homework from what you said. It will be by you and also Lambert. I think it has been raised. If we know that how Ethiopia has been mobilized in terms of the collecting of money, whether it's division from the higher administration to the lowest, how did it mobilized to collect this finance and build this project? Yes, that will be really nice for others to take a lesson, and it will motivate others as well. Thank you very much once again. Lambert is back, and thank you, Alex. Brother Lambert, just on time. We are closing. So thank you very much. John Magok from South Sudan, he said he has to attend another thing, so he left like a few minutes ago. Pig Bean, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so I thought you're gone, but it will not be nice. I should give you like 2 minutes if you have any conclusion points. And then, we end it because you did not get your chance. You are not there.
First, allow me apologies. I don't know why I've been facing serious, of course, technical problem with this StreamYard, but apologies, please, for that. Kindly accept my apologies. One thing I'll say that moving forward as an Africa, we need to check on areas that Africa need to invest much, and how can we partner together for the purpose of Africa. Like you see, we have tapped GERD in Ethiopia. There's something lying in the Congo there that can also help generate power in Africa. And also with the signing of African Free Continental Trade, where we can do trade freely, I think it's a good step you're moving forward. We need also to come with our currency, a common currency in Africa. It's a challenge we are still having. And we also need to think of how we can create our solutions as Africans. Let's look within us. We are capable of creating solutions if we partner together. But of course, infrastructural advancement, like how easily can I be to Ethiopia and to South Africa and to Ghana, will help Eastern trade and promote trade. And my last call is to young people. I'll still insist on this. We need to be part of the policies that are made today. And the only way we can be that is if you're in those parliaments. So kindly, there's no way we can be shouting for policies we want while we are outside the government and the governor. So let's put our head together. Whatever I'm trying in Kenya can work out in any other country. Let other countries also put out together, bring young people together so that we can provide a solution to this continent. Others, I do appreciate and I'm sorry for all challenges I face, but I believe it is time for Africa to rise. And if Africa has to rise, it will be risen by Africans and nobody outside this continent will make Africa great. So let's push together. Let's loans that are going to burden our continent for a long period of time, and let us spend within our means. Like for example, in my country, the revenue we are allocating per year is 1.8 trillion, but our budget is 3.2 trillion. So we are living on debts, and I know many countries are also having debt budget and debt budget. When are they planning to be paid? So let's focus on Africa, live within our means, and do what we can and what is necessary for Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, brother Pigbin. So this is Lambert. So from me to you and to the audience here, I would say again, I would like to emphasize Ethiopia has been a very good example for us. In spite of all the odds, it is possible to achieve such goals, to have such big projects to implement. In spite of all the challenges, you can bring all the people behind this project and able to build it, able to implement it. I think Ethiopia as a country for Africa, if we take it as an Olympic torch, has passed that light by being that, a political sacrificial or a sacrificial example, can we say, by passing all these through challenges, when we are told, when Ethiopia is told you cannot do it, but by sticking, by being consistent and, and doing it and showing it is possible. And this project is only for the good of my people and the surrounding of us and for all Africa. So it's all rounded politically and also for the people. It's all a Pan-African project. And also in terms of, finance, it has been an example in many ways that Africa can learn. So it is possible. It is possible in spite of all the odds. And imagine that we have a positive environment, how more we can produce, and we can implement, how more projects we can do. I would like to leave it like that. Thank you very much for your time. Are you all muted? You can say ciao, bye.
Thank you, Mahlet.
Bye,
Thank you,
bye.
Mahlet.
Bye.
And nice meeting my brothers from Africa. Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, same here. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Bye.